Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here with us. I get to be Oprah today. I'm going to interview John James, the director of Siempre Luis, and the man, the myth, the legend in his own mind, Luis Miranda.
In my own mind, that is the intro.
uh, JJ, let's start with you. Why did you want to make a documentary about Luis?
Well, when I met Luis, I mean, I was just sort of really inspired by his story. Really, the migrant angle of someone who had everything, who had a full life in Puerto Rico, and then just decides to pack up and leave because he feels the island where he's from is too small and he's got bigger dreams. And so he sets off at 19 to come to New York, and he just does amazing things. And quite frankly, I can't believe that someone didn't beat me to this. So this was really a question of thought and action, right? It was, had the idea. Was Luis going to say yes when I asked him to follow him with a camera? And B, were there sort of universal elements of his story that would connect with people? Because he's unknown. And I feel like in this day and age, it's difficult to just sort of say, hey, I'm inspired by someone. I really have a bond with this person. And I think other people will be just as affected if they're unknown, right? So, but over time, I really began to connect these kind of universal themes in his life. The migrant piece, which was kind of connecting to these universal themes that were playing out in our own culture. The family man, quite frankly, the genius, right? The most interesting man element. And it was all there. So I was going to have no regrets. I was going to do this, and whether it found a home with someone didn't matter to me. It didn't matter to Carlos, quite frankly, who had given up his time and provided his expertise and was just as kind of brought in by the man.
Well, I agree with you. I also think it was only a matter of time. I'm just grateful it was you, and this is not the Real Housewives of Washington Heights that are following us around with a camera. Luis, what was that like? What was it like being followed around with a camera? You are, and this would get a huge laugh if we were all in a ballroom, a pretty unfiltered personality. What was it like?
Unfiltered? No, I am very politically correct.
What was it like? What was it like having cameras around your life?
Well, it was probably the most difficult part. Uh, I I am comfortable doing what I need to do without having the spotlight. I don't mind building an institution as I did with the Hispanic Federation at the beginning and other institutions. I don't mind being the person behind candidates who I'm pushing forward to win an election. I don't mind being in the background to you. Uh, as a matter of fact, it's funny when they introduced in the Today Show the two anchor women, what they're saying is, oh, we get to interview Luis. We see him in that corner all the time. Whenever Lin Manuel is here, he's there in that corner. So I don't mind that role. It's a role that I have had most of my life. So to have a camera and being the center of attention was the hardest thing because I needed to teach myself that I needed to ignore the camera. Because if not, you're fake. And I never want to be a fake.
Uh, JJ, how'd you meet Luis?
Met him at a political consulting firm, Global Strategy Group. The year was, I believe it was, oh Jesus, Luis, 10 years ago, something like that. So I was working for Jeff Pollock and John Sylvan at Global Strategy Group, and Luis and I met in the kitchen there. And he was wearing his trademark sort of turtleneck underneath Guayabera. I may have made a joke. He may have made something to me. He may have said something to me. But a bond formed pretty quickly when he realized I was Puerto Rican. It was kind of like, well, what are you doing here? You're working for the wrong side of the company. You should be working for us. We get on well, and we handle projects well. And to John and Jeffrey's credit, they began putting me to work with Luis. And so I began effectively to work for Luis at Global Strategy Group. And Luis just gave me projects to work on and left me alone. And I didn't understand why he was giving me these things to these projects to run by myself, because I was not equipped or prepared to do them. But he
I
had.
know at the time, I was just
But he was
was
always there. Just when you're about to fall and your head was about to hit the pavement, he would appear. He would make it right. He was a great teacher and advisor, and that's where we met. We had a torrid pace of just dealing with the sort of the realities of someone who's a political consultant, and I was just kind of hanging on by his coattails, learning, and then eventually figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. And he played a role in that as well.
What's something that surprised you over the course of this, you know, pretty extensive shoot? What's something that surprised you about Luis that you didn't know when you met him in the kitchen?
He's shy. And I don't think a lot of people know that about him. You probably know that about him. He's really able to sort of, he has personas, and I think he's able to know, okay, I've decided to do this for JJ, and this is a production, and I need to be in this kind of mode to reflect the person I am and the person he wants to film. But really, when the camera stops rolling, I think he needs his space. I think he needs his time to be with email. I think he needs to commune with the work and the projects that he has in front of him. And most importantly, he needs to be with his family. And I think that's ultimately a very private and not a public endeavor.
Luis, do you feel shy?
I am very shy. The thing is that it's like many of you are, that you need to put aside as you do the work that you do. Being something and showing that and live together. Because the moment it's not to be shy, I'm just not ever nervous. Some people are shy and nervous. I just, will stay behind or be in the limelight, and I don't have the nervousness that people attach to being shy or going into the limelight.
JJ, what's one of your favorite things from the film that you got? What's one of those things you feel like, I'm glad I was here with the camera
Sure.
on this day?
What are three things probably? I'd say the Miguel golf cart scene. And I don't know how much we want to tee that up because we want people to experience that on their own.
I really appreciated that scene. It was like watching my own childhood.
Yeah, it's fun, right? And we I think that's a moment that for, I think, a documentary filmmaker, you just cannot get any more closer to that buzzword authenticity. And likewise the interview that we did in his room in Washington Heights. Love the scene of you guys in the Hamilton dressing room. I felt just the way I sort of characterized the golf cart scene. I feel like it's a real father-son moment. There's no one's putting on airs. It's like, I've got a job to do, Dad. Can you let me do my job? And and you kind of make light of just how much is on your plate and how stressful it is. And he's kind of in there in your hair, a real father-son moment. If there would be a third scene, I got a lot of feedback on the final scene. And I feel like, to me, I didn't, and we, meaning the sort of the collective filmmakers here, we didn't overthink that. It was something we knew. That film, I feel like him, and I just felt like that was perfect. Nobody got in the way. Nobody had to direct. We just stood back and watched it unfold, and it always brings a tear to my eye when I watch it.
I think it's important to acknowledge that one of the main scene stealers, besides Miguel, is my mom,
Yes.
who gets a laugh every time she's on screen. How did your marriage survive this filming? How did Mom take it?
Well, for 42 years last week, your mom ignores everything she wants to ignore about me. So this was
the secret to a long-lasting marriage.
This was one more instance where
are there cameras? Okay, cool.
Where she ignored what she wanted to ignore. That's sort of the way she believes, and she's very upfront and clear about it. that she believes I'm too intense, and she is way more laid back, and she doesn't want my intensity to affect who she is. So I have learned to be as intense as I want to be, because I know that if it's getting to her, she's going to say, back off.
And I think
And
it's great that you remind me of her role and her presence. She's really the film's Virgil, right? She is the narrator, or the who takes us screen tests. Whenever we show this to folks, that'd be the first uh, piece of feedback we would get is, quote unquote, that woman was amazing. And I think it probably is the reason why we showed up to her house and filmed her 4 times.
Yeah.
Because there was always that you were peeling back the layers of the onion. She was always giving something more. You'd go into the cutting room and you'd see her takes, and she just kind of she gives. And in a production, as you know, giving is great. You can do a lot with that.
JJ, what was your biggest challenge making this? What do you wish could have survived the cutting room floor?
I think the biggest challenge was Luis's schedule. I think we wish we could have just followed him more. I mean, in a world of endless dollars, that would have been the case, but it's not. And so, in my mind, I always think back to, oh, what if we were in that room, or what if we were there with him? What if we could have just made that 6 a.m. flight? But that was probably the biggest challenge. The challenge to make the Sundance deadline, we were way late on that, on our submission. And the cutting room, I think, opened maybe June 1st, and they were receiving submissions in early fall. So that was very stressful. That was a hectic pace, as you probably recall. Stuff that probably the scene that I would love to have made into the film is the Yamila question. Your Luis's sister. I asked her about what Luis's legacy would be, and I botched the question. And it basically led with, like, what happens if Luis isn't here? He's dead. And she got up and basically walked out, and she said in Spanish, "Really, JJ, you're going to ask me that question?" She ripped her lav off, and I had to apologize because I'm sort of pretty green at this, and I got my master's degree over the course of 3 years here, and I had to apologize. I teed the question up in the wrong possible way, and all of these thoughts of her dear brother came to her mind, and she was just like, "I'm done."
Man, we had a dramatic walk off. This was
We
the Real
did.
Housewives of Washington Heights. We missed that. And of course, we love Titi Jamila, and she loves her brother. We're at the Hispanic Federation Virtual Gala. Luis, you started this organization 30 years ago. And I guess my question is, did you imagine we'd be here? And what do you imagine for the future of it?
I always did. I always knew that it was a great idea that many Latino leaders thought about. It was not my idea, it was my job to execute that idea. And I knew that the most important thing I needed to do was to leave. That you throw the plates and the balls up. You make sure they're pretty, they're painted, they're doing good, all of that is happening, and then you have to step back and let others take over, because that allows for more ingenuity, for new ideas to come to the picture. I can never understand the one. I will be crazed why someone stays in the same place forever and ever and ever, because I believe that organizations get strong, grow, when you let them be, and then there's the next leader that takes it to the next level. And I always knew that there will be a great future for the Hispanic Federation. Uh, and Lorraine and Lillian and Jose and now Frankie are sort of the crew that have taken the organization to a next level.
Um, that feels like a really organic place to end things, guys. Thank you for talking to me. Thank all of you for being a part of this gala. Thank you in advance for watching Siempre Luis on HBO, and to another 30 years.